Last week we did a lot of positioning from our feet, making sure we're in a good stance, knowing where our hands are, knowing where our feet are, and continuing to move in a good athletic position, finding what we call the happy zone, making sure that we wrestle from our happy zone, and dividing our opponent down in half to the right and left, and in half over under, and really going after the attacks from those positions. So tonight we're going to take the next step and actually start to go after our attack. It's still important that every athlete understands where their attack hand is and where their control hand is. And we want to make sure that they're putting themselves in positions of success. So when I go to attack my opponent, I'm still dividing in half, right, left, over, under, and I'm going after him from my happy zone. Hand fight into those certain positions I need to where I feel comfortable so I can pull the trigger. So tonight what we're going to work with is actually going to committed offensive attacks. I don't call them a shot, although that's the common term for it, but committed offensive attack means I'm going to go get his leg and take him down. All right? I don't call it a shot because a lot of things have to happen in the meantime besides just taking a shot or penetrating. And the first thing I'm going to think about is what my partner is doing, what my opponent is doing. I want to beat his hands, his head, his hips, and his feet. In any position that I'm in the sport of wrestling, I want to beat my opponent's hands, head, hips, and feet. Okay? And then I also want to take a look and focus on my hands, head, hips, and feet when I'm in on the leg and attacking to make sure that I can get a good solid finish position. So when I break down my opponent, right, left, over, under, and I start to go to attack, the first thing I can look at is beating his hands. So he's in a good solid position. His first line of defense is going to be his hands. So if he's got a good solid hand position, if I can never get past his hands, I'm never going to get to his leg. Okay, so we can take that shot, but if I don't beat his hands, it's all for nothing because I'm not going to get to his leg. I need to be able to get to his leg. And I like to have a simple phrase that when I attack, when I do make a committed offensive attack, when I shoot to score. There's really no other reason to shoot. Okay? I shoot to score. If I'm on the edge in freestyle, I can shoot him off. If I'm in the center, I shoot to score. I don't shoot to hang on. I don't shoot to chew up the time. I shoot to score. So if I'm going to actually take a penetration step, I want to make sure that I get to his legs and eventually into a finished position. So I have to beat his hands. That's the first thing. All right? And you can do this as a coach. You can figure out what your athlete's like, what each individual athlete likes. It might be something as simple as grabbing his hands, moving him or moving his hands out of the way. Something from the outside where I can fake and get his hands to react there. Okay, and then I can go this way. I can maybe even take a little reach and bait him up. And then I'm going to go. All right? But I want to beat his hands first. I can't go through his hands. So I have to move his hands. All right? If I can move his hands out of the way, the first option would be to go around his hands. Around his hands. Okay? So if I'm going to go to a leg attack, I want to go around his hands. Introduces some lateral motion, gets me moving side to side. All right, I have to be moving my feet to go around his hands. I'm going around, I'm getting what we call a good solid angle. I'm moving my feet laterally, and I'm moving my partner out of position as well. So that first step is to beat the hands. And again, I can do this from the outside, where I might hit a fake, his hands react. I can come up like I'm reaching and drop down. I could even give him my hand if I'd like. If that's going to help me beat his hands. I got to beat his hands. You can be creative enough as a coach to understand ways to beat his hands, but I'm thinking about beating his hands. And a good way to beat his hands is the idea to go around his hands, around his arms to my attacks. Okay, so that's the first step, is beat his hands. Second step is to beat his head. This is his second line of defense, is his head. So if I beat his hands, but I don't beat his head, I can't get to his legs. Right? So I have to beat his head as well. This is where being in the happy zone really sets me up for a good offensive attack. But if I can beat his hands and beat his head, I can really get to where I need to in my attack. So as coaches, we should understand a couple things. That a wrestling match is really divided into a lot of small wrestling matches. And usually on their feet, the guy who wins the hand fight and the head fight is the one who's successful in getting to the committed offensive attacks and scoring. So I want to make sure that I'm hand fighting and head fighting. Okay, I'm moving my head into a good position. So if I take a shot, if I penetrate, and he can change his level and block my head, I didn't beat his head. It stops me from moving in. Okay, so once I penetrate, I have to also beat his head. And this is why when kids are youth wrestlers, coaches teach them how to change levels and penetrate. When I change a level, that's just simply beating his head. I beat his head so I can go in to the attack. So I got to beat his hands and beat his head. All right, and that gets me to the legs. The drill that we can introduce for this is I just call it snatch singles. And basically we go live It's live hand fighting. I'm trying to outposition my opponent. He's trying to outposition me. And I'm just trying to get to his leg and lock my hands on his knee. I can't touch my knees to the ground. Alright, if I touch my knees to the ground, it doesn't count. You just keep track with your opponent. So Austin and I will actually go here. We'll go a little combat. This is a good drill, but we both go hard. We both try to get the leg. So if we're wrestling, we're in here. We're both going. Austin got his hands locked. He gets 1 point. Alright, as we're going here, if he gets his hands down, and I can keep him from locking his hands right there. Alright, that's good defense on my part. He doesn't score his point. So we're just both going. I really got to understand, I've got to beat those hands and beat the head, okay? All right, so as we're drilling through this, you've got to beat the head and beat the hands. If I have good solid hand position and good solid head position, he should never get to my leg, all right? He's got longer arms than I do, but I should be able to keep him away with my hands and my head here, okay? So he's trying to penetrate, but if I'm blocking with my hands and head, he should not get to my legs, right? So he's going to try to beat my hands, beat my head. I'm doing the same thing. I'm trying to beat his hands and beat his head. Okay? This helps a couple little things for this drill. What it does is it gets the hands and head fight into action, but it also helps me close the gap on the leg. I actually have to go to the leg to score. If I just drop down and grab the leg, he's going to block with his hands, he's going to get his weight back. It's not going to happen. A lot of times we see guys who are in good solid position, they just drop to get a shot. They drop down to a knee and they don't actually penetrate by moving forward. So if I'm going to beat his hands and head, that's all great, but now I'm starting to penetrate and move forward, okay? And that's why I stay off our knees for this drill. It isolates us a little bit into focusing on just the hand fight and head fight and going to the leg. I have to go to the leg. So third step is as I beat the hands, I beat the head, and then I have to beat the hips. Okay, and really what that means to me is I've got to control his body. If I get to his leg, it can be my right hand attack, my left side attack. If I beat his hands and head, I get to his body. I have to control his hips. I have to get his weight off of me. Good solid defensive wrestler, when I attack, he's going to try to get his weight on me. Okay, first line of defense is his hands. Second line is his head. Third line is his hips. So if I take a good solid shot, get to his legs, he stops me with that hip pressure and gets heavy and stuffs me down, I'm carrying his weight. It's going to be really, really difficult for me to finish. So I beat his hands, I beat his head, I get to his legs, and then I got to beat his body, beat his hips. Okay? This is where his power is in wrestling. The hip area is your power, core strength. I got to beat that core. If he's applying all of his weight, all of his strength onto me, it gets really difficult for me to finish. So as we're drilling this, and you can just start beating the hands and head, get to the leg. Here, as I'm drilling this, I get to the leg, I want to go through his body with my body. It could be on a single leg, high crotch, double leg, whichever it is. And I'm working on getting him to go off of me. Okay? I don't want to stop on my shot. I get to my shot here, and I get him going away from me. Get his weight away from me. Okay? If I'm shooting on a high crotch, it's the same thing. I beat the hands and head. I get to the leg. I'm in good position. I want to get his weight off of me. All right? So I'm driving through him. Driving through. A couple things this does is it keeps my body square to his body. If I start turning off, he's going to cut the corner, particularly if I'm on a high crotch. If I don't go through him and I go forward to the side, he's going to beat the angle, okay? Single leg, same thing. If I'm not going through him, I'm going around, he starts to get his weight down. If I go this way, he gets his weight down. So I want to take my body, my head stays up, I want to go through my partner, okay? Through my opponent. So whichever it is, high crotch, single, double leg, once I hit, I go through his body. And really, it's like a football tackle. I've got to see what I hit. When I hit him, I got to drive my feet, run through his body, okay? And if you're playing football, he can do a stiff arm to block me. He can put his head down to block me. But if I can get to his body, get past his hands, past his head, get to his body, I'm taking my weight, going through his weight. I'm going to shift all that weight backwards. When he's moving forward, he can catch his weight, can't he? If he's going backwards, it's a little bit more difficult for him. That's why when we do sprints, when you run the 100-yard dash, you run it forward and not backwards, because you can move better forward than you can backwards. So I get to his legs, I want to get him going backwards. So this is a drill. You can just put your wrestlers through this, is make them go to their shot. They can drop to their knee if you'd like. either side, right, left. These are right, left attacks. Get to that leg, drive him off. So here we're wrestling. I'm going to my single leg attack. Here, drive him away. Drive him away. Okay. Going here to my high crotch attack. I get to my leg, drive him away. But look at my chest is facing him. I'm getting my weight to go through him. Okay. Especially when our head's outside, we have that tendency to turn this way and drive through. I want to turn my body into him and drive through him. Drive through him. Okay, so my chest faces him and I drive through him. Okay, that's how we beat his hips. The fourth step to beat my opponent is I want to beat his feet. Okay, we talked about this in week 1, making sure that my feet are always set to attack. I can get his feet moving as well. From the outside, I might do some fakes. I might go one side, go to the other. I'm just beating his feet. Basically what I mean by that is I'm getting him out of his offensive attack position so that I can attack him. Alright? If he has an offensive attack and his feet are stationary, they're not moving, boom, there's an attack for me. Low single, straight on high crotch, straight on double. But I'm going to try to beat his feet. So as I'm moving, I might do a little fake here, boom. Moved his feet, now I'm beating his feet, okay? So this is really very basic. It just comes down to movements. I'm still looking at the hands and head and all those positions. When I get to his leg, I got to go through his body, but I'm beating his feet now this time, okay? And in other ways we can beat his feet is I'm wrestling, I can leg sweep it, he might readjust there, boom, I can beat the leg, okay? I might come back in here, fake, he comes back, boom, okay, beat that leg. Might come here to a single, it's not there, high crotch, beat that leg, okay? And every time I go to that leg, I want to drive my body through his body, okay? It's very important that you hold your wrestlers accountable to that. Go through their body every single time. You don't want them going outside, you want them going through. And the good way to go through is getting that chest forward, okay? Head stays up. So the second step that we are going to go to when we go to our committed offensive attack is I'm going to focus on my positioning, my body position. When we were focusing on my partner, I was thinking of beating his hands, head, hips or body, and feet, right? And breaking down the entire situation there. During the off season and in the spring, I think it's really important to work on the mechanics of our wrestling because a lot of us are getting ready for Freestyle State and Greco State, which is a month away. But we've got a lot of time. We don't need to be working hard to peak for an event coming up closely, so we can work on the mechanics. When I am in on a leg attack, okay, I've actually penetrated, I get to the leg, and you can even back it up before you go. I want to focus on what are my hands doing. What are my hands doing, okay? Are my hands in a good position to attack, okay? Is he blocking me with my hands? And this is just for your wrestlers to understand where they're at in the positioning. When I actually penetrate, I believe it's important that when we attack at the joints, okay? His leg has 3 joints. Ankle, knee, and hip. 3 joints. I want to control 2 joints every time I get to his leg. Okay, so how do I do that? I do it with my hands, my shoulder or head, all right? I want to make sure that when I penetrate, I'm attacking joints. So we're thinking about my hands. Okay, so I think it's important to go to the knee as the solid basic attack. And when I take my hand, I'm actually shooting to the knee. Get my hand to the knee. I don't want to shoot past it. If I shoot past his leg here, now I've given him essentially, 10 inches to a foot for him to maneuver, right? To get his leg back. Go ahead and get your leg back. So now, I'm right here when I've got a hold of the leg. When I can shoot, I can grab the leg right away, okay? I can slide past it. Snake it down. Some coaches call it snaking it down. Or if I'm going to go to high crouch, same thing. I don't want to shoot past the leg. I want to stop at the leg here and go right to the knee, okay? I don't want to shoot past it. If I'm shooting past it, I'm giving that opportunity to sprawl, okay? A little different than if I go to his hip. If I go to his hip, I still have to grab on tightly. Some people come up high on the shot. I want to grab that hip. It's got to be tight. I don't want to shoot past it. Gives them that opportunity to sprawl. Okay? When I go to that knee, I'm shooting to the knee. Okay? Shoot to the knee. I'm hanging on tight. Okay? So you can think, just have your wrestlers experiment with this. Where are their hands? Is it the best place for them? He can help me out when I shoot. Am I in a good solid place? We attack the joints because his leg bends at his joint. Alright? And I can hang on where it bends. If I attack up here where he's got his muscle, okay, or down here where I lose my leverage and extension is a loss of power, I want to attack at the joints because it's easier for me to hang on. So my hands are at joints. Okay? Hands are at joints. And then that second part that I mentioned, this is a little bit different for that drill, is when I do attack his legs, I want to control 2 of those joints. So I've got right now on my high crotch knee and hip. My hip, right? It's controlled. Single leg, same thing. Knee and hip. Low single, I'm going to the foot and knee. Okay? I'm attacking 2 joints. I want to control those 2 joints. Because if I control 2 joints, I'm ahead 2-1. I should win that battle. If I give him 2 joints, I only have 1. He should win that battle, 2-1. So if I take that shot here, and I've only got 1 joint, that's a lot of motion for him to move those hips, to get his feet back. That's not good for me. So we're gonna really break down the mechanics. When I attack his leg, what are my hands doing? That's the first thing I want to think of. My hands, okay? And we want to get them to a joint. Get those hands to a joint. And then you can go a little step further and control 2 joints. Hands to a joint. Where are your hands? Are both hands down there? Am I leaving one up too long? When I attack, am I attacking past his leg? Am I stopping? So all those questions, break it down with your athletes and make sure that when they attack the joints. Second place that I have to focus on my own self when I attack is where's my head, right? So hands, head, hips, feet. What's my head doing? I heard Ben Peterson say when I was in high school, he told me where your head goes, your body goes. So if my head goes down, my body goes down. So when I take my penetration step, I want to make sure that my head is up, okay? Driving through my partner. We talked about that already, where I attack his core, his hips, drive through my opponent. So what's my head doing when I'm penetrating? Am I shooting down? Okay? Going back to that football analogy, can I see what I hit? Can I see what I'm hitting? Okay, single leg, can I see what I'm hitting? My high crotch, can I see what I'm hitting? Okay? Can I see what I'm attacking? I want to make sure that my head is up. I think that something that can help us understand that is when I do get to the leg, hands in good position, head's in good position. My head sets my shoulder into good position. I think we go from our feet on an attack. We want to get into a finished position. So when I do penetrate, I'm holding on to the leg, but I'm in a place where I can finish. All right? I don't want to shoot to the leg and give myself a bad position. I don't want to shoot and be too far away. Okay? That's probably not an effective shot selection. Probably wasn't very wise. When I see that leg and I do penetrate, I want to get myself to a good finished position. So from here, I got to make sure I'm in a finished position, okay? That I can actually finish my shot when I continue moving. Get myself to a finished position. Finished position. Okay, so my head's up, good solid position, thinking good solid finished position. That third portion is our hips. Where are our hips? A lot of times our head and our hips correlate in our positioning. So if my head is down, usually puts my hips out. I want my hips to be underneath my head. Hips or butt underneath my head. When I attack, if I can keep my butt underneath my body, my weight right here, my strength underneath my body and my head, I'm going to put myself in a good finish position. So if I do penetrate and my butt stays behind here, I got to get this back into good solid position. I might have to knee slide, take another step. I want to get my butt underneath my head. Okay? And this is simple drilling. It sounds very basic, but you really have to drill these with your athletes to make sure that they know what they're doing. They've got to repeat it. You've got to hold them accountable. These little mechanics, if we skip them and go from beginning to end and miss all of the pieces of the puzzle in between, we could really shortchange the development of our athletes. So I want to break down the mechanics. What are my hands doing? Where's my head? Where's my hips? And then that last one is what are my feet doing? One of the most common mistakes I see from athletes when they do actually get to a leg and penetrate, they might be in great position, they quit moving their feet. You got to run those feet. If I'm thinking about that football analogy again, when I'm tackling my opponent, I'm running through him. If I stop moving my feet, he's going to plant his feet and go around me, or shuck me, or stiff arm me, knock me over, run me over. If I can move my feet, I can get my weight through him quickly, I can continue to improve my position, but my feet can't stop moving. So really remember to remind your athletes to run their feet. They get to that leg, I've got to run my feet. If I get here and stop, he can get his defense going. So I want to run my feet. Even if it's little tiny steps, I'm continuously moving here. I get my penetration. I'm running my feet, okay? And if I do go to a finish, I've got to run my feet to the finish. I'm not just trying to drive him over and have him fall down. That's what happens a lot of times at high school wrestling. So I want to get my feet and run them underneath. So if I'm going to shoot a high crotch and switch off to a double, I got to run my feet. Run him all the way through, all the way till he hits the ground. You got to cover some distance. Single leg, same thing. Run the feet.